Professor Prigogine?
I want first to say that I feel that there is a deep convergence in the views expressed by Maharishi and some of the aims towards unity which is expressed in recent tendencies in science. And therefore there are many comments about that which I suppose will be discussed during the conference. There was, however, one statement made by Maharishi which I am not exactly understanding, and I would like to, it's a very optimistic statement, and I would like to see if I have not perhaps badly understood it. It is a statement made that suffering is related to violation of laws of nature. Yeah. Now, this is, of course, an extremely optimistic statement in the sense that, therefore, if we could learn how not to violate laws of nature, suffering would have, in a sense, a stop. Now, if I understand rightly, of course, if we would stop to live, in a sense, there would be also no suffering. But in a sense, how to combine life with absence of suffering is not life, in a sense, always a conflict and always related to some amount of suffering because of the conflicts which themselves are part of the reasons for evolution, in a sense. The conflicts which we see, let's say, I would not like to simplify too much, but let's take an ecosystem in which we have prey, predators, we have all kinds of species together. And it is in the conflict between them that we see finally the possibility of evolution. And therefore, I wondered if it's not possible to make a little this statement more clear.
One very beautiful thing that is contained in Dr. Prigogine's remark is a very basic principle of evolution. The evolution proceeds on difference, contradistinction, opposition, and that is between activity and rest. Activity and rest. Cycles. There is cycle and there is activity and there is rest. There is activity and there is rest. All these cycles of days and nights, activity and rest, sleep and waking, activity and rest. And this is how evolution proceeds. Now, suffering is because of the drag that creative intelligence feels to itself. The evolutionary process, all this cycle of rest and action and rest and action, this is because of the creative nature of life. Life must create newer values, higher values, bigger horizons. It must create. It creates through the activity and rest, through the activity and rest. But it must create. At any time, for any reason, if this creative tendency of life, this creative nature of life, this creative intelligence of life is obstructed from creating, it begins to feel uncomfortable. Creative intelligence begins to feel uncomfortable at any moment where it finds restriction for its free and full expression, because it must express more and more and more. This is the nature of life, to grow. And this is the evolutionary process. At the basis of every evolutionary process, at every basis, at every stroke of evolution, at the basis of every step of evolution is creative intelligence. Obstruction to it makes life uncomfortable. Uncomfortable is what we say pain or suffering or problems and struggle and all that. Now, if the activity, which is a cycle of rest and action, this progression, is in tune with its source, which is unbounded, the home of all the laws of nature. If the activity is in tune with it, then it will keep on deriving vitality. Otherwise, it will start to suffer. One example, a wave rising high. If it rises high, if it keeps on rising high only and does not amass water at its base, then it becomes weak. So the creative intelligence needs a very comprehensive stroke of action and equally comprehensive strokes of rest. And in this example of the wave rising high, what we find is the vertical activity of rising high must be supported by the horizontal activity of amassing more water at the base. And then the evolutionary process will keep life of the wave integrated. Or else, if it loses the contact with the base, it only keeps going high and high. It becomes weak, and then even the small breeze will shatter the crest. In this process, in this weakening of the integrated structure, when the contact with the base is missing, is the entropy that we call it. Entropy increases. Now, when the entropy increases, life becomes more disintegrated and all that. But this is only when the contact with the home of all the laws of nature is missing. Now we see that human nervous system, because of its great adaptability inherent in it, it must be capable of adapting itself to that condition from where the conscious contact with the infinite, with the unbounded, with the home of all the laws of nature will not be lost. So, agreed that it is the difference, and a very great contrasting difference, activity and rest, which promotes the process of evolution. It is certainly very, very contrasting. The steps of evolution that go, they are through rest and activity. And because of this, we do find an element which from seen from one angle could be very embarrassing, being at the basis of evolution, something that we call evolution, but it has two contrasting values. One opposes the other. Rest opposes activity, activity opposes rest. But these two diversified values go to structure the nature of creative intelligence. Just because it is creative, it must have these two elements, one destructive and one promotive. One state must be destroyed for the other to come up. So this destructive element must be there, but along with the creative element. In this way, we do find process of evolution having these two contrasting values. And these contrasting values, one after the other, are necessary. It is they who comprise creative intelligence. But because the nature of creative intelligence is to create and more, it rejoices in evolving its territory of influence all the time like that. So with all the element of destruction at the basis of creative or evolutionary process, we don't find it should be allowed to extend its influence to cause struggle or suffering. Because struggle is something where one which offers resistance to progress. And resistance to progress is anti-evolutionary, and therefore we can't think that resistance is a part of evolutionary process. So we can't think suffering is a part of life, which is always evolutionary, always evolutionary.